All right, so let's talk about this OneReplicas Super Stunt Vader hilt that my client sent to me as one of 5. The other 4 are all Starfall hilts. Those will be in a separate video, but because this is a different setup on how to do the basic operations of putting it in and out, putting the chassis in and out of the Saber, wanted to go over it separately for the customer, and then anything that's programming related will be pretty similar across the 5 hilts. So the customer can refer to either this video or that video for specific information. So let's hop down to the table. Let's talk about what went on with the chassis design and the programming, show a few fonts, features, show off some accent pixels, talk about all the internal electronics and what went into it. And then we'll hop back out. I'll show some blade styles. I'll show some blade functions, and then cover a couple things that are going to be the same on the Starfall hilts for the customer, but just because this will be in a separate video, kind of repeat some of that information in case they're directing their siblings who these are gifts for into one of those 2 videos. So let's hop down to the table, check it out. We'll wrap it up, come back out, show that off, and then we'll be done. All right, let's talk the OneReplicas Darth Vader SSMp hilt. Now I'm starting this with the resin chassis outside to go over the operations of how to put it in, but we can quickly show off all of the details that I put into the Saber to make this something high-end and per the customer's request. Specifically, you can see his family's initials here. This is part of a set of 5 Sabers for this client, 4 of which were created by Nick at Starfall, and Nick etched this detail into the hilt themselves. So we decided to put that feature on the chassis since this is kind of a pre-manufactured hilt. But we've got a Shadowfoil neopixel up top, Proffie V3. Config is on the SD card. We have a crystal chamber with a real quartz crystal and a neopixel shining from underneath with 4 1515 accent neopixels so that animations can do some pretty cool, interesting things. Highly detailed chassis, very much inspired by Tim McCarthy at Tierfon Orbital. Check out his work if you're not familiar with it, but he's known for doing like this. Well, one, the whole idea of the kind of resin Greeblie chassis is kind of like his bread and butter, but specifically some of these details were drawn directly from him in terms of like this neopixel strip, this little accent here at the top in the midsection. One of the things I decided to do was kind of show off this R2-D2 kind of front panel here, which is duplicated and mirrored. But we just got a lot of little cool accents. I did some painting, and yeah. So we've got 2 onboard tactile switch, which will line up underneath this box. I've printed off 2 actuator switches. You can put the chassis in with those in. The best way to do that is either invert the hilt so that those switches kind of fall against the plate here and that you can push up underneath here. But it may behoove the user to actually just take them out and then visually inspect it as they push it in, cinch the hilt down or cinch the chassis down, and then put those actuators in. I'll show that here in a second. But moving on, we've got a kill switch, 18650 battery. To remove it, I like to just smack it against my 2 fingers here, gently, not hard, and then the battery will just hop out. So we do have positive terminal clearly identified, but spring side is always your negative. So flat part of your battery goes against the spring, nipple goes to the nipple. We do have a custom battery wrap from KR Sabers. Speaking of KR Sabers, we've got a KR 24mm bass speaker. I did print an offset ring to go against the pommel so we don't have any distortion. And then underneath these accents are 2020 strips subdivided into 3 blades, sort of like Tim does at Tierfon. So these little round Greeblies will light up different colors than the central strip. And the on and off states will do different things depending on which preset we are on. So to turn it on, we hit our kill switch. I will say that the customer
Sometimes I wonder what's happening to the Jedi Order.
Did request like 50 some odd presets, some of which have variations in subfolders.
I suggest.
So I'm going to the start here. All right, so this is the first font that he requested. So this is the beginning of the preset list. Starts with Vader Hilt, obviously. So we can see the heartbeat in the crystal chamber. The neopixel blade will match that color per his request. And then we can see the little accent strips doing something different. It's hard to tell in this lighting, but the these are going from like a yellow to a red. And then we have twist on, thrust on, and swing on. So now we can see those colors changed. Now we can see we got more of a solid color. And then the emitter PCB will just match what the blade will do. So yeah. So top is power, bottom is aux. So when we want to go and put it in, we will remove the pommel here. Oops. Now I did print a little topper here, a little Greeblie for a blade plug, because the 1 inch diameter up the top goes to a certain depth, and then the chassis is perfectly designed to go up against that. So if you want to help you learn not to go past that, we can do that. And with swing on, if that does happen, you can just turn it off real quick. So the best way to do this is to align the red buttons with the center of this strip, which is the center of this activation box. And again, what I mentioned before is it's going to be helpful to invert the hilt so that those actuators, and I'm going to do this off camera, but those actuators, you'll want to make sure don't prevent the hilt from going in. So now that I'm in and I'm fully up against, if I need to test, I can press that down.
I see you have constructed a new lightsaber.
Okay, so we know we're working. Then we can just cinch it off here. And I highly recommend, if you do not have the blade plug in, to use this set screw up at the top to press down against the chassis and lock it in place. You don't need to over tighten it, just get it to where you feel it press against the chassis. And now the chassis is locked in, the alignment is perfect for the switches, and then you can see a little bit of shine through there. Again, top is your main, bottom is your aux. I'm gonna pull this out now, you can see that in there. So otherwise, what you can do is you can pull that plate off and then drop out the actuators. Let me show you these real quick. I do have a bag of extras here just in case these get lost or broken, but you can see they're offset just a little bit. So when you want to go to put them in and check the alignment, and I don't have a light here to show you down in there. See if we can get some light. No, it's too deep to show it, but the red buttons are perfectly in alignment. So what we do is now we can drop this in. So you can do this before you put the chassis in, and as you slide it, if you want to look. Over time, if you're doing it with the switches in, you may rub these down so that they are a little bit more loose fitting. If that does happen, you may hear a little rattle once the plate is on, because the distance between the top of the button and the chassis is kind of rubbed down, and so the speaker vibration may cause that. So you'll see a little piece of tape I put on the top one. I'm sorry. Oops, on the bottom, to kind of take up that gap, because this rocks basically on a teeter-totter of these two little, I don't know if those are just screws or what, posts. But the PCB will sit on top of that, and then the buttons are now stiff. But over time, that may, wear down. So again, you can just put a piece of tape either on the PCB on the switch. You can use the extras I've got. But if you do hear a little rattle, if you're holding it in your hand, you're basically going to dampen that vibration. Just know that it's something that could happen over time. It's not happening now, but it could happen. But again, lock the chassis in place if you ever swing this around without either a blade or a blade plug-in. So that's how we do that. And again, we have twist on. We have swing on, twist off, or we have thrust on. And those are just gesture controls. So we'll go over the rest of it with the blade in. Anything I don't cover in either this portion or the next will be on a printout for the customer. But yeah, let me show off a few of the accent pixels while we do have this down here. So I'm going to undo this set screw. And then to get the chassis out, you just need to use our finger. And you want to make sure you're doing this over a table or over a pillow or with your hands cupped so that the chassis doesn't come flying out. Because again, this is a resin printed chassis, which can be fragile. You do not want to drop this because chances are something will break. So you can do all the operations here with these onboard switches. Auxiliary in the...
I suggest you try it again, Luke. This time, let go your conscious self and act on instinct.
Auxiliary in the off state will go forward in the preset lists. Again, there's like over 50 fonts here. So you may notice a lag as it reads the card. But if you need to go backwards, you can point the hilt down and press aux.
I'll never turn to the dark side.
So you'll notice the lag because
I suggest you
the lights will stop. And again, it's just reading that card. And the card is almost full of fonts. But yeah, so we've got blue for Anakin version 3, and then some different accent colors just so that not everything's the same. The blade color, for the most part, will match the crystal color, but the accents just may vary. And they may change color in the on and off state depending on what's going on. If you do leave the chassis out, after 5 minutes, the accent pixels will go to sleep. It's not a deep sleep, so it will drain the battery a slight bit over time, but it will help if you forget about it. If the battery is almost completely drained, you'll start to hear a sound, at which point you should just take it out, or you can hit the kill switch. But if it does go to sleep and you want to turn it back on, you need to do a button press. The gestures won't work. So, and that'll just wake it back up. You'll see the lights come back on, and then we can move on. So yeah, let's just take a quick look here at some of the features and accents. Again, a lot of this design is owed to Tim McCarthy at Tierfon, so Tierfon Orbital. So I highly suggest, if you don't know who he is, check him out. These accent strips are kind of his bread and butter, along with these. I think these are like inspired by the Martin Bayer chassis that are actual metal chassis. And since the customer asked for something that looked like metal, that's what I did. We did the family initials, and then I did the RTD2 panels, and then just some extra things to make it interesting.
Count Dooku.
So, yep. And when we're ready, we can just hit the kill switch and then either store it on the shelf or put it back in the hilts for long-term storage. And again, do not forget to either keep the blade plug in or to set the set screw so that that chassis is locked in. You don't want to forget this on a shelf, not have it locked down, go to pick it up and accidentally have it come out. It's not likely to do that, but I just want to warn against it. So that'll cover it. Let's move on and we'll show it with a blade in. Okie doke, so we showed off the chassis. I showed off how to put it in and out of the hilt with or without the actuators in. Right now I've got it already inserted. I've already got it cinched down. I also have this blade in. I think this is a 32-inch blade, but it should light up fully. I will be programming it for a 30-inch length, but we'll make that change right after this video so that anything that gets cropped because of the length, we'll be able to see that now, and then it'll be different for the blade that you buy for your sibling for this hilt. So again, right off the top, the top switch is your activation. Your bottom is your auxiliary. To go back and forth between fonts, you hit auxiliary in the off state. To go forward, you'll be in any position. If you want to go backwards, you'll point the hilt down. There is a button combination where you can hold and then rotate the saber to go through the presets. Because this SD card is loaded with 50 some odd fonts, and they're in subfolders on how I got them from the font makers, you will notice a little bit of a lag, so keep that in mind as you operate that. But everything else will operate just fine. Proffie V3 is very robust, so I've programmed with a lot of features in mind, but I left a lot of space for you to expand upon in the future should you decide to get into learning how to do that, show that off for your siblings and help them reprogram or add new fonts or change things out. So this is a 1-inch diameter blade, and then I think you said you're going to buy a 30-inch. So again, this is a 32. The other ones are a different size, different length, but we'll reprogram that. To start off, we have 3 different ways to start the saber. We can hit a button press, or we can, 2 different ways, but 3 different gestures. Or we can use a gesture control. We have swing on, we have twist on, and then we have thrust on. When you're pulling the chassis in and out of the saber, that swing on may make you start up when you're not intending to. So that's something you could just to be on the lookout as you pull the chassis in and out. I'm going to twist on. When I do a gesture, whether it's twist, swing, or thrust, I'm in battle mode, which means when I clash the saber, if I don't immediately move the hilt around, I'm going to start a lockup. So let me just show that off real quick. So now we're in a lockup. You can move the saber around like a little bit, but when you jerk away, you're going to disengage that lockup. Now a lockup is also a melt, which is when we're sideways and we thrust forward and clash. So let's see if I can get it to do that. Okay. So now you can see the tip light up. It's a little bit different on camera than it is in real life. The longer you hold it, the more active it gets. When you rotate it, it changes colors a little bit until you let go. Same thing for drag. If we're pointing the saber down and we clash, you're gonna get that drag effect until you pull the saber away. Now, if you're in regular mode with activation, clashing is just going to be a glancing blow as if you're dueling, and you clash sabers. If you want to engage a lockup, you hold either aux or power while you clash. So if I hold aux and clash, now I'm in a lockup until I let that button go. I can keep this as long as I need to until I let it go. And again, that's no matter if I'm pointing down, sideways, or what. So that's battle mode. One of the other things you can do is engage multi-blast mode if you are swinging the saber and you tap aux or hold aux. So now I'm in multi-blast mode, so a glancing jerk to the side will automatically do blaster blocks. To get out of it, you hit aux again. And now I can jerk the saber around just like I normally would. So if I did want to just do blaster blocks, I would just hit the aux as I want to. So that's multi-blast mode. One of the other things to do is to hold power for a second, and whether the blade is on or off, you'll get a number of different features. So when the blade is off, holding power for a second will start track player mode if we're in any position other than upright. If we're in an upright position, then we'll only play the designated track that I've picked for each preset. Some of the presets didn't come with a bunch of tracks, so I've got a huge list of tracks in a common folder where you've got the other edit mode features, in which case if you do track player mode, you might hear a lag before it picks that track up. But pointing upright, if, for instance, this Vader font does have multiple tracks, we're only going to start and stop the track that I've chosen for the preset. So let's do that real quick. Okay, there we go. I don't think I held it long enough. So now we've started the track, right? And I can still start the saber up just fine. If the saber is on and I want to turn the track off, I have to be upright just like I just did. Right? Hold it for a second. Oops, I didn't do it. So you gotta be upright. It's actually a little bit longer than 1 Mississippi. I think it's more like 2 seconds. But that being said, that's to turn the designated track on and off. Now, as I mentioned, in the off state, we do have track player mode. So any other position, you hold that for a long press, and it will pick one of the, it will start with the first track in the folder, and then as we rotate the saber, we can go to the next track. So let's do that for a second. Again, there's a little bit of a lag, so that little chime is your alert that you're in track player mode. Now, as we rotate the saber, it'll go to the next track, I think alphabetically. But if I want to keep playing whichever one I rotate to, I hit power or aux, and I forget which one does what, but one of them will play that track through and then go to the next one. The other one will play that track through and either go to a random or the loop. I forget. It'll be on the printout. Power. Now I can move the saber around and it's going to keep playing the track instead of rotating to the next one. Again, hold it to turn it off. And again, you can turn it off when the blade is on. You just have to be upright as well. But when the blade is on, if you're not doing track player mode, holding for a second will do a force effect or a quote. Now we have to switch between force and quote player, and I'll show you how to do that real quick. So turn the blade on, hold power for a long press. I've programmed it to do something different on each preset, but for the most part it'll do like a unstable for as long as a sound is playing. And this one has a long one.
To land our troops beyond their energy field and deploy the fleet so that nothing gets off the system.
And even though it's talking, this is a force effect. So if on this particular font there are quotes, point the hilt down when the blade is on, hold for a long press. No, there's no quotes. Let's go to a different font that we know has one. Okay, so now we're on a font that I know has force and quote effects. So depending on where you last left off, you may be in force player mode. By default, for the most part, you start in force player mode. But to switch back and forth, you point the hilt down. So let's do that real quick. All right, so right now I'm regular mode. Long press will be a force effect. Sometimes the preset will have an animated blade style for as long as the sound is playing to let you know it's kind of a feature. And then when you invert the hilt, we'll switch between it. So let's do that real quick. You can see it. So that one was a little bit of a long one. But as long as that sound was playing, it changed blade styles. Right? Okay, so to switch to the force player, the quote player, point the hilt down, hold power for a second. Can't talk. And you'll know because you'll start a quote.
That's treason.
All right, so now we're in quote player mode, and that animated blade style will no longer happen.
They think inwards, only about themselves.
And we're just gonna pick random quotes because I've got that setting set to pick a random quote.
I'm going there to end this war. This is a hacking.
But if we want to switch back to force player mode, we have to point the hilt down, hold for a second. And then once we get a sound effect, we know we're in there. Okay. Sorry, that took a little bit because I wasn't sure about all of these fonts. You gave me 50 of them. All right, so that's force player mode. That's all of the features that can happen when you press and hold power for a second. Now, I mentioned this down below, but because there's a bunch of accent pixels and the way I programmed all of these fonts to take advantage of OS 7, the on-the-fly color change will wipe across all of them. So if that's fine with you, then when the blade is on, hold aux and tap power. You'll get that little alert. Now you're in on-the-fly color change. and then you jump between them. If you want to get in between the colors, you hold power, and I can't really do that on camera very well, but you'll go to color zoom. Again, it will change the base color of every accent pixel to whatever you choose. Because I went through the process of programming every individual accent to be something unique, I don't suggest doing that, but it's up to you. It's how you want to use your saber. So I'm going to revert. If I want to accept the color though, you hit power. If you want to revert, you'll hit auxiliary, and then you'll hear them say revert.
Revert.
And I've used the Vader sound font. So what I would suggest is if you only want to change the main blade and the crystal chamber, you get into edit mode, which is hold both buttons at the same time. Takes a second.
Edit mode.
So now you heard we're in edit mode, and we want to go to color change.
Edit style. Edit color.
Edit color, so we hit power to accept.
Select blade.
Now, it's going to, as we rotate the hilt, go through the various blades. There's, I think, 5 on this particular hilt. 1 is always the main blade. 2 is always the crystal chamber, no matter which of these 5 I'm sending to you. So we rotate.
1.
And you'll notice the blade is now blinking to let you know this is blade 1. So if that's the one you want to change, you hit power.
Color menu.
Now we're in color menu. We want to switch. We want to tell it, do I want to do color list or
color options?
Yes. You can change blade styles or color options. Let's do color options.
Select effect. Base color.
The base color will be the one we're talking about, but just to hear the other ones.
Blast color.
Blast color.
Clash color.
Clash color.
Blast color.
For the most part,
base
you don't want to affect that. You just want to affect the base color. So let's
swing color.
do the base color.
Color. Select option. Color list.
Now we get into color list or color hue. Color hue is the gradient. Color list is the one that jumps between.
Adjust color hue.
So we'll go back to
color list.
Color list. Again, power, always to accept. And so now we can see it's going through it just like before. I don't want to do anything, so I'm going to revert. But if I did like it, I'd hit power. It would ask you to accept. So then you rotate to say yes, and then hit power, and then it will accept. You will always get the option to undo. So
revert. Color options.
Okay, now I've got to back out of all of the menus because I don't want to do anything.
Cancel. Select effect. Cancel. Color menu. Cancel. Select blade.
So if I did want to go to the crystal.
1, 2.
2 would be the crystal. We can't see it because it's in here. But then the rest would be the accent strips. So again, I'm going to get out of here.
Cancel. Main menu. Exit.
So now we're just as if we turn the saber on. So that's the reason I generally don't go into edit mode, is because those menus can get deep. It will be on a printout, so you'll be able to follow it if you get confused. But it's different for each preset. Some of these presets have a ton of color options. But for the most part, you only ever want to affect the base color. The swing color that you heard is the color that happens during the force effect. So you can just leave that alone if you want to. But if you chose like a red blade style, but I programmed a blue blade style, it would be blue when I do a force effect. So again, that's something you can learn on the printout. It'll go through all those options. It's just one way of doing things. Again, if you do the on-the-fly color change, you're going to wipe all of the colors. Again, that's up to you, but I would suggest edit mode if you like what I've done. The other option, as always, if you do something you don't like, get back into edit mode.
Edit mode. Edit style. Edit color.
Go to edit color.
Select blade. 1.
Select blade.
Color menu. Color options. Copy colors. Reset colors.
Now I can reset the colors to how I programmed it. So if you've done something where you've wiped all of the blades, you can jump into edit mode, and for each blade you can tell it to reset the colors, and it'll go back to what was programmed originally.
Cancel. Select main menu. Exit.
So that's I just wanted to cover that again, if I didn't do that down below here with the blade, so you could see it and you can see it blink. It's just one way of doing things. Again, it's up to you how you want to do your saber, but I suggest it because I did spend quite a bit of time to do something very unique with all of the options. It's, again, you're going to just be changing the colors. Now, there's different animations on the chassis itself. You're not going to be affecting those unless you jump to that particular style. When we were on the blade, it went from color to style options instead of color options. So that would be something you could learn how to do. You'd have to read the config to learn about all of the options. It gets very confusing, but the comments section above each preset will let you know what the options are, which, again, something more advanced users are welcome to do. I don't generally suggest it, but because this is something different for you and you had some particular requests, I wanted to go over that. The only other thing I should mention with color change is one of the Starfall fonts, and I'll show that with the Starfall Hilts, does color change direct, and the on-the-fly color change will just swap between two colors. Again, watch that video for that. But yeah, it doesn't really apply to the other 40, 50 some odd fonts here. So that's going to cover a majority of the functionality. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. But before you do, please, again, read the printouts and or go to the FET263 website that will be linked on the printout. And there's a ton of videos that cover all of the options available to you and things you can learn how to do in the future should you want to. And if you can't figure something out, then email me. But for the most part, I've done all of the work. You should just want to turn the blade on and off and switch between the font. And everything's going to pretty much be fun right out the gate. So I hope you like it.
Jedi Knight.
And again, thanks for your patience. And let me know if you have any questions.